Welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalfas. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Millionaire Show. We are here with Kevin Davis. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing great. And you good? How you guys doing?
Oh,
Doing pretty good.
can't complain. Can't complain. Besides, it's probably hotter here than it is there in Florida. It's been like 95, 100 degrees every day here, so that's been brutal.
Yeah, that's every day. 98, 96 here right now.
Ooh, goodness gracious.
I'm in the house.
So Kevin, I read a little bit about your bio. So kind of a cool, you were a rapper. We could start there before all the finance stuff. We're a finance podcast, we talk about money and stuff, but so you were a rapper that traveled the world. Can you tell us like a little bit about how that happened?
By accident. Um, okay, so I had a deal with Warner Brothers Records, 1989. I had a record called Stomp, and it came out. It was really big around the country. But to take it back, the reason why I got into being a rapper is because when hip hop started, they used to have what they call jams, hip hop jams in the park or park jams. And so we'd go there every weekend. You'd hear the noise. It'd be like a half mile away. You hear these big speakers. And I started rapping and having a lot of fun. I was in my second year in college, and I met RZA, which was, from the Wu-Tang Clan. And, we would rap every week. He would always have this battle with me of how many rhymes he can write. And it was just really it was different back then. But my mom decided that, hey, when she was 17, she got put out. You got to get out. And I didn't, and that was a hobby, but it became real to me. So at that point, I didn't know. I'm 17 years old. I'm trying to figure it out. Maybe I could be a rapper. And my friend was like, you should make a record. I was like, okay, what does that entail? So then I started that whole process, and it took me maybe 3 to 4 years to get a record deal. And then boom, I traveled around the world. I was making a ton of money. Well, for me, I mean, almost 100 grand a month for 20 something year old. Was really big and didn't know anything about money. No one pulled me aside and said, hey, you should do this. You should buy real estate. You should invest in stocks. I have no clue. So, I stayed in a studio apartment the whole ride, never thought about moving. I had a 1987 Toyota Corolla that opened up from the passenger side. We remember the hoopties. So, that was it.
So what did you do with the money?
Spend it. 5 years I didn't work, and I just lived off of the money that I made and hung out. And I think I partied for like 5 days a week, and was in the studio making records that would never come out. It was hilarious. But it was just, I don't know, I was just a kid. I was enjoying my youth. And what do you do when you're 21 years old and you're making money? You
You can get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so I'm happy I didn't get into that type of trouble, but it was a good time. It was the best time of my life for that period, and I totally enjoyed it. I'm happy I lost it in a way because it allowed me to become a stockbroker. It pushed me to find something else to do to make money, or that type of money. So I remember I was working for UPS, and I was making what is it, like $9 an hour, and I was working this insane, 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. And you had to do 22 boxes a minute. And I was union, and the managers weren't. So it was always a clash, and you're just working your tail off for nothing. And it was, I had to find a way. And I remember I was on the phone in tears with my mom. She's like, you cannot come home. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to work for $5,000 an hour. You'll see. And that's when the music took off.
Nice.
So how do you get a record deal? Did you have to approach them, or did they find your music and listen to it and wanted to bring you on?
It was a real route. Okay, so you start by making a demo. So you have to find people to make beats for you. And then, so you had to make, I don't know, I always tell people life is about dualism. One person to the next. You can't exist by yourself. So someone can help me. that type of thing. And that's what happened. So I found these guys to make a beat for me. I recorded that beat. And so I had that as a demo tape. Ironically, during the period of time that I was in, house music was becoming this thing. And so I'd go to this club called the Garage, and these hip hop clubs called Latin Quarters and the Underground and things like that. And I start rhyming over these beats. I I think it was, I don't know how many months before, but I started working and selling cars in New Jersey. I met a girl. She helped me get a job. I started working in Bob Shazuli Toyota. And I was actually trying to figure it out. I played my demo tape for this guy who happened to be my manager's cousin. He heard the demo, said, listen, I want to meet this guy. I went to go see him. His name was Mike Cameron. I went to see him, and he heard it, and he said, hey, I really love your demo. Can you rap over this? Well, to go back to the clubs, the house clubs, I was writing a rhyme already, and I said a rhyme over it, the beat that they gave me, and it took me 5 more minutes to write the rest of it, and that turned out to be the hit record. That's how it happened.
Nice. So in those scenarios when you get brought on to a record company, and you mentioned you have a manager. What is the like split that you have to give them out of the money that you receive?
At that point, I think it was 20% of the shows, and they had a production deal. You always get the raw end of the deal when you first start. So the production deal meant I was signed to them. I wasn't signed directly to the label.
Is that pretty consistent with what it is in today's, I guess when there's managers and rappers and artists, is it pretty similar nowadays as far as you know?
Oh, today it's worse. You get a 360 deal. And today they get a piece of your show, your digital, everything you do. You can't breathe, for the distribution network that they have.
Gotcha.
It's a racket. I'm happy I'm not there anymore.
So yeah, now it's streaming and everything too. I imagine it's even tougher. So let's talk about the stockbroking thing. So you got into the stock market when, in that kind of like timeline,
or so I was watching a movie called Trading Places. We all know it, with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. And I was like, this is crazy. I want to do that. I didn't know what it was. It was actually commodities. I thought it was stocks, but I didn't know. And so I don't know, whatever you think about becomes reality, I guess. So one day I'm sitting in front of my grandmother's home in Flushing, and I'm reading a newspaper. I think it was the Times. I was looking at the wanted ads, and my friend who was sitting in the steps worked at Stratton Oakmont. Stratton Oakmont was the notorious firm that Wolf of Wall Street was after. I didn't know. She says, I can get you a job, and so I was like, okay. I put on a suit, the only one I had, went in, and they interviewed me. I think it wasn't even an interview. It was like they grilled the crap out of me. And I was a street kid. So I was unfazed, and they were shocked, and they liked that. Weird. And so they hired me. And, at this point in time, my vernacular was a little bit different, a little unpleasant, but I sat there as a bunch of people who didn't look like me that took me in and made me family. And I learned, they taught me, and I worked my tail up. I probably stood up from the time I got in there to time that I left. I was on my feet pitching stock all day. And that wasn't really a, investment firm or stock firm. That was a bucket shop, and I learned that after a while and went to a real firm, at least a real research firm. But that was my first entry into the stock market. I got like a 91.2 on my test. So it wasn't the smarts, it was just the opportunity.
Huh. That's interesting, because back then, yeah, you needed to like go out and push these things, where now it's like everything's so accessible with Robinhood. I mean, you could go on your phone and buy, anything you want. So when you're there, you're literally calling customers that have money in some way and trying to just get them to buy whatever it was. And it's the classic like Wolf of Wall Street kind of like, oh, we're gonna get this commission for selling this shit. So let's just push this shit, whatever it is.
Well,
That's but
oddly enough, and you're right, 100%, by the way, but oddly enough, they brought Steve Madden's shoes public, and everybody knows Steve Madden. They would
yeah.
get their hands on a good deal every now and then. It's just that their practices were about, for instance, let's say that I called you up, you were on the face card of a Dun and Bradstreet lead, which is a top 500 corporate, in America. I'd call you up, I'd pitch a stock to you. You decide to buy 10,000 shares of a $15 stock. You send me 150 grand. You would make $1 per share at those firms. So that's $15,000 for about 15 minutes of work on a phone call. So the motivation to make money, and the car row was absolutely real. It was the sickest thing you've ever seen. So they motivated you, they controlled your minds with the money you can make, the things you can buy. And you got on the phone, they told you what to buy, they told you what to do, and you were just a soldier for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good. When I think of the Wolf of Wall Street, that's like that's what it was, kind of. It's cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember. I'll never forget this. I'm not at Stratton, but now I'm at the research firm. But I had the skill set. Like I can open up an account. I was a really good account opener. So I get on the telephone. I never forget this. There was a lead on the floor, Dr. Templeton. I'll never forget his name. Right. Hope he does listen to your podcast. Just kidding. Anyway, I said, I had 3 cold callers. I was training them, and I go, listen, watch this. So I take the lead off the phone, off the floor. I dial the number and I call, and I'm pitching them. I was pitching them Sports Authority, right before they merged with Guard Sports. Good company, and it actually did very well. Actually, I knew how to make money there, but the skill set helped me. He sent me $50,000 and never met me. I never sent him anything in the mail. It was just a name and a number. And that was the skill set that they taught. What my takeaway was from it is that that's how America was won. You pick up the phone and you go after what you want. You just have to do it in a very wholesome way. You can't do it with the intentions to be bad. And so I got out of that and then got into research. And then that's the part that really, like I always tell people, that saved my life, because I knew how to actually do research and, future based on future cash flows, and just I knew what that growth outlook on that company was, and I was able to really dig deep into the actual financials. So it became like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so I didn't know I was like a numbers geek. I loved it, so that's where the career really took off for me. And I remember I had a ton of the Sports Authority, because I think 9/11 happened, and the stock went down to $3. I was buying it at $5, and I had a lot. And I think it took about a year and a half or so. I'm not sure how long, but the Guard Sports actually purchased it. So they merged with it, like $11, $12, somewhere around there. My clients were happy. I had Intuitive Surgical ISRG at $35. It ran to $75. At that time, I thought I was a hero. That stock ran to $2,000. Right. Gymboree. I had all these great companies, and all of it because there was a structure to research that I found. And I was also intuitive. So what I mean is, in every business that I ever got involved with, I figured out a system that worked. And like, I used to own an insurance company. So I was the #1 referral in the nation. There's still no one to give more referrals than me. I don't care who it is, because I realized it's about the buy-in. But if I teach you, not sell you, that's the honesty in the presentation. You know what I know now. And once you know what I know, you also know your deficiencies. And if I have the best product, guess what you're going to do? You're going to buy it and you're going to recommend it to everybody. But you have to kind of be funneled into the belief that, I'd get your whole cell phone and I'd have you text everybody about this wonderful opportunity, this guy. And I'd sit in your home and wait for your phones to come back. And then I'd make phone calls, because I realized you're not going to be rude to your friend's guest, are you? Oh no. So I can actually go crazy. And so I just make all the calls, set all the appointments. And guess what? I knew that if I set the appointment in the house, it was 95% chance of a sale if I saw them the same day, 80% the next day. So why not try to get 500, 800 referrals in a week and go crazy? And that's exactly what I did. That helped me retire in 2019.
So going back to the stock market, are there still like over the phone sales that happen nowadays, or is that kind of obsolete?
No, I'm quite sure there's over the phones. Yeah, I'm sure there's
But are
still
like
there.
people still like in Wall Street, just like in an office, just calling people like they were back in the day?
I'm sure, and I'm disconnected from it, but you have two types of mindsets. You have the wire house firms, like the Merrill Lynch's of the world, and they're setting meetings. They're still meeting with clients and that type. They're still cold calling. They have to. You cold calling. That's how the world is built. Are they calling every day for clients? I don't know. I'm not there, but I could say that the lower firms, that's how they get their business. If you're an investor, here's what happens. It's almost in any business, the lead is pretty much how you succeed, right? So if I know you have a half a million dollars in a market, I know you're an accredited investor, and I have a product, I'm going to call you. And either you give me 2 minutes or you hang up the phone. But I'm not going to hang up the phone ever. You got to hang up the phone on me. That's the deal. And that's what the whole thought process back in the days was about. So I still think that, because you got to realize the bucket shop concept didn't come from the bucket shops. It came from the Lehman Brothers, right? Lehman Brothers was like the king cold callers. Here's a book, call them. So call what did they call that? The phone book back in the days, right? That's a real
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that was a real thing. So
Nice. It's funny to think about how, things have changed, but kind of still stayed the same because we're in the real estate space and you think about wholesaling, like cold callers hit us. We own a bunch of houses, so we get calls all the time for people trying to buy our house because they're trying to sell it to the next guy. So that's kind of still how it's going in that realm. So it must be
yeah,
the
it's not going to
same
change.
with businesses as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not going to change. I think capitalism, we got to make a phone call. Like I got to call people all the time for the app. I got to reach out. They have a lot of systems now. So things have changed where you have systems where you can get in contact with people and it becomes a lot easier. And you're not asking them for money. And actually, when you're the one giving the money, it's easier to get people's attention, right? But
yeah.
it's the same structure.
So what were the next steps after you described a little bit how you worked at that company, and then what were your next steps in your stock market journey after that?
So when I went to work at the research firm, let's just go back a little bit. When the dot-com era happened and it blew up, I was there, and I'll never forget it. I went through, I didn't even know it, but I went through a depression back then, and it was like maybe 6 months. I didn't even go to work. I would just call in, and they didn't care. You're an independent contractor, right? But it was like broker Disneyland at one point. Everything with .com was going crazy. And we were making money hand over fist. I remember a guy I had, first name John. He had he owned a suit, an outfit uniform company, and I took his account from 100 grand to 1.1 million. So obviously he loved me. Qualcomm split 4-for-1, ran from like $400 to $700 a share. We bought it after the split. That stock tanked. Boom. We got out of it. We lost a lot of money. He didn't lose any money technically, but we definitely got hurt. That period of time was really tough, but we had this thing on Wall Street. You tell bad news quick, you could take your time to tell good news. And so, that whole process made me want to leave Wall Street. Just the whole, I was getting tired of that process of new book, make another call, raise more money, blah, 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 blah. So leaving, and this is at a different firm. So once I left that firm, I went to the research firm. I realized what I was doing wrong as far as in picking my stocks. And then I honed that skill set. And then I left Wall Street. I moved to Florida. This is 2005. So in 2005, I still had my license. I was still working for a firm, but I just did it in Florida till 2000 and I kept my license there until 2012. What happened next was I dwindled away from it and I opened up a mortgage company. I had that since 2005 to 2008 when the market cracked. From there, that went out of business. I had to go to insurance because everybody that was making money was kind of leaving the trail. This is where you got to go next. This is where you got to go next. So I went to the insurance company where I dominated. I mean, absolutely dominated there. And because I was making like 70 grand a week, something crazy at the mortgage company. So I couldn't make $2,000 and them guys celebrated and give out $50 bonuses and think that was awesome. Right. So
Yeah.
I said to them, listen, where's the money at? They said, well, you got to become an owner. How do I get there? You got to do X amount of dollars in a certain amount of time, and we'll give you the opportunity. Be back. See you later. I came back. I'd be the guy walking with a box of swabs because you just have to swab your clients. A box of swabs. I said nothing to anyone. I wasn't social. I was trying to get back the life that I was created. And about it was 2010, December, I moved to Maryland, opened up my firm. It was me and another fellow who lasted 2 weeks, so it's just me. So I'm in a, what is it? What do they call those? A virtual space. No, I forgot the offices, executive suite. And I hired a secretary. And from there, it took me from 1 to 56 agents in a year and kind of crushed that. And then, I retired in 2000, into 2016, went to work for my buddy for 2 years because you have to, your renewals will kick in after your debt is clear. So it took 2 years to do that. Then I retired 2019, pandemic hits. My buddies are after me like, man, you're really good at the stocks. You're really good at the stocks. So they started pushing me. And I'm like, leave me alone. I just retired. I want to spend time with my wife and my kid. So I have a 5-year-old now, but he was a year old. So I was like, okay, no. January comes, no. February, no. Okay, May. So all of a sudden I started doing these games and I would do like Investopedia had a simulator, stock simulator. And I went from like, they said, create a group. I said, okay, from 30 people in the group to like 6,300, like virtually overnight. And so now we're doing all these games. And then what happened was something kind of cool. People were asking me to coach them. And I was like, okay, let me see how that works. So I figured out a whole system for that. And then all of a sudden I do a game and I was signing up maybe, I would say between 20 to 25% of the participants into coaching. To this day, I mean, I still have like 52 people that I coach, but 40 of them have been with me since I started the game. We have excellent percentages. But the bottom line is what happened is it took me 2 years until the site started. They did something wonky with the site and they changed it to the point where you couldn't even execute a trade and the system just really, the UX is just unfriendly. So I created my own stock app and simulator, put some group chats in it, leaderboards. It's extremely fun. So, and that's what I launched back in this year in April. And that's how I got here.
So back when people started asking you to coach them and you kind of, I guess, didn't know whether or not you wanted to do that, and then eventually you jumped into it. How did you know how to structure your coaching to make sense for the person who was going to be coached?
So what I knew, because I was a stockbroker, I knew I couldn't recommend anything to anyone. I could tell you what I'm buying for my son and my daughter, but I can also tell you, listen, what I'm doing for me is well researched. You need to do your research. I'll tell you what I'm buying, but I'll teach you how to research it. That was the tenets. No, I can't suggest, I can't recommend, I can't advise. Understand this? I can teach you what I know. So this way, if someone comes up to you and they say, I got a hot tip or an idea, you can break it down to the syllable and compound, to the basics. And you can tell whether this company is good for you or not, right? Because it's your money, right? But you got to get your money a job. You can't bankrupt your account. So I would teach people that. The structure for me was, okay, I have to I'm retired now, But at the same token, I do not want a job. So I said, okay, I'll do quarterly meetings. And he said, why? Because earnings come out quarterly. I'll do monthly accountability meetings. Why? Because people do not perform without their coaches in the gym the same routine, right? I'll do group chats on the daily perspective, so you understand how to think about the stock market, its manipulation, its participants, its institution, the macro and micro environment. I will also make sure that you know what I'm doing every day in my accounts. So this way, and don't make a move from my chat, please. It doesn't suit one fits all. Send me a text, and then we can discuss it. And that's what would happen. And then that structure stayed true to this day. I learned some things along this journey. Like obviously IQ, EQ is important, but MQ is probably twice as important. And what do I mean? So you might have the intelligence to research. It's really about common sense, right? But EQ, you may not have the emotional elasticity it takes to stomach the gyrations in the stock market. Example, I had a client, not a client, but I don't even call them clients, they're my friends now, but she bought 2 shares of Apple. I'll never forget this. It split 4-for-1, I think 2021. And she had it at like 135. It went down to like 110. She's like, ooh, like she's a little nervous because this is the first time. It doesn't matter. It was only 2 shares. What it mattered is that she put X amount of dollars in and it was worth less than what she put in. So she sent me a text, and it's like the first text of its kind I've ever gotten, because I'm pretty good with the emotional planting the seeds, because conviction is the pill that you take like Dramamine. It stops all of the craziness, because once you know what you're doing, it's easier. But anyway, so I sat there and I talked to her, and I said to her, listen, let me ask you a question. She's like, what? Do you eat out, eat lunch, or you bring your lunch? No, I eat out. How much do you spend a day? She said about 10 to $15. So I said, what's that, about $50 to $75 a week? I said, yes, because at this point you got to realize she's down about $50. So I'm like, let me ask you another question. Do you ever go around the commode looking for that? She started laughing, right? And I said, exactly, right? So let me ask you another question. An idea would be, what if you bought 2 more shares there? And instead of owning it at 135, you owned it at 118. And when it went back to 135, you was in profit. What would that look like? Well, that'd be pretty cool. So what we do is that you get, these are just sayings, but you get bread when it's red. Green just means you did the right thing. You get rich when the market's up. You get wealthy when the market is down. So that was the whole mantra and theme that I taught my whole team. Now they understand discount days are for shopping, because bargains are in the basement. They're not on the roof. So she wound up buying more, and she has a significant account right now, because once she got over the early steps of her beginning journey, now she understands the research. She understands that the money has to get a job, and then she puts it to work. She doesn't spend money on frivolous things. That day I was down about, 287,000. I didn't tell her that until the end of the conversation. She's like, oh God, I'm here talking about $50. I said, it's okay, because it's relative. Emotional elasticity. So if you got $10,000 to put in the market, you can't handle a 30% swing, because you don't. $3,000? Oh, what do you mean? You won't be able to understand it. So if you're dollar cost averaging, and let's say you're starting with about $500, and every month you put 500 in until there's a real opportunity, you might put 1,000 in, but you're dollar cost averaging or averaging down, you get a chance to learn how the market works. Once you see opportunity and you're successful, then it kicks in, and then I got to put the reins on them to go, whoa, 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 relax a little bit, because it's called dollar cost averaging for a reason. Over time, you're not going to have all the money you want to invest this year. So if you got $500 a month, that's $6,000. Your dollar is stronger when it's longer. So that means you have to wait for opportunities. So that whole thought process is what happened. So we got guys, I would say my line of percentages over the last 3 years are between 80 and 200 and something, like maybe 230, 240. My son has the best because he has me, but so I don't even mention him, but he's like 270, but no one cares about it. They love the fact that I'm in the lead. Obviously, I'm up 300 something, but I'm supposed to be. I follow my own lead. But with the difference between the people on the lower end to the higher end of the spectrum is how you listen. So if you listen at the speed of coaching, you're okay. You research at the speed of light, you're okay. If you're a person that's kind of let life and everything is about what's happening, then you're going to have your accountant's going to pretty much suffer because you're not on that discipline. You're not on that consistency. So that's the whole thing right there.
So how many hours per day would you say you spend in the stock market making trades or just
researching?
what's going on?
I was going to say, I'm a long-term investor, so I don't do any trades. I'm just buying when I get my liquidity in. So as far as hours researching, I'm always looking at the market. I just started doing my research meeting, which takes about 2 months because I always have a question to answer in that meeting. And by the time I'm done, it has to be fully understood by everybody. So everybody understands what they need to do for the next 2, 3, 4 quarters, that type of thing. So I spent a lot of time doing research. Now the business is here. I don't think I sleep that much. I probably sleep maybe 3.5 to 4 hours a night.
And then is there a certain amount that you like to invest since you're more of a long-term investor, as you mentioned? Is there a certain amount like per month, per week that you like to add into the stock market?
All of it.
Do you have a recommendation for somebody as a percentage of their income?
So again, I can't recommend, but I would say this. There's 2 trains of thought. Depends on how liquid you are. So if you're just starting out, for every dollar you make, a third should go into the market, like 33 cents. 33 cents for you, 33 cents for your investments, 33% for your bills. Because you got to live your life too. You can't just be all work and play, right? But if you're someone like me, it's 95.5. Because if you can live over 5% of your income, why are you holding on to 95% just to look at it? It ain't doing nothing. It's like they say, cash is trash.
So Nick and I are both real estate guys. We own a bunch of real estate. Are you doing any real estate investing as well, or are you just strictly on the market?
I'm strictly on the market now. Later on when I have an S corp, so unless I take the money out, I don't have that type of tax consequence. But later on, I'm going to need to get into real estate just to get some of these. Like I pay a ton of money in taxes every year. So
yeah, that's what we always find interesting about the guys that are in these like places, market, lending, whatever, that's making a significant amount of cash and don't get into things like real estate where we have cost seg studies where like we can make $1 million a year and we're not paying nearly anything for a while. At least you could defer it for God until you die almost, So like what keeps you out of buying real estate? Because we're like I would say 90% real estate and 10% in the stocks because we don't pay taxes. Like I don't want to say that like, well, IRS come after me.
No,
but
they know the rules. They wrote the rules, so they understand. Yeah, I would say to you this is 2 reasons right now. Liquidity goes into the stock market and the business, so I have to build to my revenue base. I just started, right? The other thing is that it's always been my wheelhouse. Like for instance, if you bought a house for $1 million, and let's say you were not investors because it's different, and let's say you bought $1 million home and you paid cash for it, right? What do you think that house is worth in 20 years? What, 3, 4?
Yeah, I mean, you figure if it's like 2% a year,
right? Compound. So let's just call it 3 million to be safe. 3.5, right? That same money at 10% would be worth around 17 million. And unless you sell it, you don't have any consequence. That's what long-term investing is. 20% when you give up to the old government. I'd gladly give you 20%. Here you go. I'm still net 14 million.
Yeah, right? I guess our argument, and Nick can probably weigh in on this as well, is like, yeah, we might have bought that $1 million asset. From our perspective, we're only really putting down maximum 200K. We're controlling that asset at $1 million. And in our situation, there's other people paying the mortgage. So we got somebody paying the mortgage. We only put a fifth of it down. And in some cases, we don't put anything down. Well, we put something down in the beginning and then we refinance after we do the renovation and we have no money in the game. and we own the asset, our tenants are paying the bill, and we still get that 2% appreciation. So arguably with the cash flow, the appreciation, and the tax benefits, we're almost at the same number.
No, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And I don't disagree. That's why I said that's a later
Yeah.
stage for me. Okay. So when I owned a mortgage company, my buddy Jim Sullivan, we became really good friends. I was his mortgage broker. This guy had 100 properties. And, I was doing like 2 refinances for him a week. And now he's my poker buddy. And, he's pretty well off at this point. But the whole deal was, he's, hey, you always get into, I need to get into real estate. But again, stocks were my thing. Like everybody talking about what stock right now, Nvidia. Oh, Nvidia, AI. My son's had it for 6 years. This guy's got a quarter ticket in his account on that stock alone. He's 5, right? Mm-hmm. So when what happens when he's 18? You understand? So if you think about time value on money, think like this. My parents, if they would have just bought $2,000 worth of McDonald's when it went public in the 60s, it's like $20. I think it went public at that they would have 74,000 shares today, which would be about $18 million off of $2,000. This is the point I'm reaching. So while here's the other thing, and I find it very interesting. It's never me against you, stocks against real estate. It's both. Because right. I'm sure if you knew how to do what I do, then you don't have to pay taxes on the money and you have long-term capital. You would never touch the money.
Right.
Keep the liquid funds that you need to do your deals, right? Free. You got your tax shelters going on and you're making that money dance. See ya later. Goodbye. And you're not thinking about it because I mentioned the word conviction. That stops emotional irrationality, that behavior. Because if it's like, let's say your shoe size is a size 10. Someone comes to you and say, you're a 9. It's silly for you to think you can tell me what size my shoe is, sir. Right? And they're arguing with you. It's almost like the argument between Jordan and
LeBron.
LeBron, but only sillier because you better than anyone knows you.
Right.
So they can't tell you nothing. So you have that type of conviction and the data sets to know this makes sense. It's like swing it to a macro conversation for 2 minutes. So pre-pandemic, there was about a little over $3 trillion on the Fed's balance sheet. Now it's 7.3. Well, there's still a lot of liquidity in the system, but the Democrats and just the market as a whole want lower interest rates. Obviously, it's going to help the president. Let's get to the real deal. Lower interest rates creates liquidity and also can create inflation in this environment. Inflation is when you have too much money chasing too few goods. So it doesn't make sense to lower interest rates, but they're on them anyway, right? So the way I look at it is, if you understand just where you're going, like for instance, we're in a bull market. Bull markets typically last 5 years and change, like 5.4 months, that type of thing, right? A recession typically lasts like 9 months. So I'm happy to get a recession because, again, you get wealthy in down markets, you get up and rich. But most people don't really understand it. But if we're going to start lowering interest rates now, without all of this money coming out of the system, we're just going to end up raising them again. It's going to be a seesaw, right? And not to mention, like, no one's ever talking about balancing the budget. I think the last time the budget's been balanced was Bill Clinton was in office. He was the first or second president to do that. I think Lyndon Johnson was the first. So it's all of this. We have $34 trillion in, debt. We have about 28 trillion dollars in GDP. We got about 1.2 trillion in deficit. How do you figure that out? And then you got to look at the market. How is the market? Because the stock is the fishbowl. You're sitting in that stock, but the fishbowl is the macro environment. How do you make money in this market? It's like you being in your area. You're Schaefer City right now. Why? Because not enough supply. So you're king, right? That's just how it is. And interest rates are horrible right now. But the reality behind it is no supply. So in Florida, you saw a lot of people come in, institutional money, buying single family homes. It's a cash cow for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't understand the macro and the micro environment, you shouldn't be investing in stocks. And so if you don't know this and don't have the time because you're busy, okay, S&P 500, just leave it alone. Just dump it into that.
The Warren
Why?
Buffett way. Yeah. Just if you put it in there over time, that's what you do, right? That you just put it into the S&P and time is your friend, and that's what it
That's
is.
it. Yes, 10.5% over the last 90 years.
Yeah. So let's give me like a little pitch on Investment Dojo, your app,
Huh,
and kind of like
that part.
what is it? An elevator pitch on what it is, and then how people can kind of get involved and why should they?
Okay, so it's a simulator, stock simulator. It is created so you can get your first entrance into the market. It's a moderated game by myself and my coaches, and it's a lot of fun. It's edutainment. It's addictive, and you learn a ton. And if you qualify, you have an opportunity to get coaching, so you can take that fake dollar, real emotion, and turn into real action. How
Okay.
about that for an elevator pitch?
I like that. So it's funny. I'm going to do a quick like how we started is that I was a public school teacher at one time in my life and started investing in real estate. And next thing you know, I didn't need to be a public school teacher anymore. But at the end of my journey teaching kids, I was teaching a lot of inner city kids. Um, I at my last year, I was making a lot more money in real estate than I was being a teacher, obviously, right? So that was my final kind of goodbye. I was teaching gym, but I actually started teaching investments to these kids and why I'm not going to be teaching them next year, and how much I made in the teaching world to how much I made in the real estate world. And I I got with Nick because he was doing a YouTube channel, kind of teaching how he scaled to zero to now like 100 properties that he owns in a short period of time. And I wanted to always get into, that's what led to the podcast, is I wanted to get into financial education for kids. And this is like the perfect kind of game because it's like gamifying something that kids don't learn in school. And I was saying that, a kid would ask me, why don't the other teachers tell us about this? And I'm like, I want to say, well, it's because they're broke, because they don't have money to invest. That's why. And, unfortunately, a lot of the kids that we taught, their parents didn't know how to invest either. So they didn't have anywhere to learn from. And whether it's real estate, stocks, CDs, anything, they didn't know anything. So this is like a perfect game. Is it all ages? Anybody can come in and play, or?
I make it for this. It's 18 and above right now, but 13-year-olds of the supervision can get involved,
Okay.
because there's a lot of social media, components to it. You can group chat, so we don't want bullying and things like that. Kids are not as nice, right?
Yeah.
I can tell an adult not to do it. I'll delete them, but you don't want to hurt a 13-year-old's feelings. So different. But my thought process is I teach the parents because the apples don't fall from the ground; they fall from the tree. So what we do is this, and this is the cool part about it. Are you competitive? Both of you guys are probably extremely competitive.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
let's just say we took your YouTube channel and we did a battle between you and him. And let's say 1,000 people joined. They're in the chat. It's the sickest environment ever because guess what? When you see emojis and memes, you see people's emotions. And then if they're losing or winning, they start texting and saying the craziest things. And then there's this leaderboard. And that leaderboard, yeah, we could make it every 5 minutes so it updates, but we don't. We make it update at 12 and at 4. Why? Because we make you work for it. And then at 12, you see it. Oh, God, I'm ahead. Oh, God, I'm not there. And then guess what? The person who's ahead lays low. The person that's down, they press. So what happens at 4 is that the person who thought they were in the head and they took their foot off the gas, now they're behind. So now you have 1,000 people in this environment. And then they're seeing the stock go crazy. So now here's the other deal. We gamified it because we play in a 15-minute window. Yeah, we have real-time games, but we moderate, pardon me, the actual game, right? It's live. So what happens is It's a 15-minute window. If you see Apple trading in the stock market at $200 and it's trading on the app at 195, you better hurry up and get it. It's only going to be there for 15 minutes. So now everybody's trying to find that window of opportunity and find these stocks to run up the score. You see people with $1 billion in like a day, something sick, right? So now they realize, well, this is not, it's about the competition, the camaraderie, the whole thing, and you're pushing and you're pulling, and it's just the craziest thing. And then on Saturdays, I have a Zoom meeting. I'm celebrating the top, talking crap with them, having a good time. I'm teaching the middle. I'm bringing the bottom to the understanding. And we're doing this for 3 weeks straight. And so what happens in that second week is like clockwork. I don't even sell anything. I don't say anything. Hey, do you coach? Is there any way you can? And all of a sudden, I give them an opportunity to get into coaching. But here's the deal. I don't sell it, and you can't qualify just by being there. You have to qualify by a couple of things. Relationship, because I got a 5-month-old now and I got a 5-year-old, and it's about bringing the right energy around my wife. So I want to make sure, because I'm on Zoom, right? You're still in my household, right? And my wife doesn't want me to be upset because someone thought they had enough money or more money than myself, and I never told them what I had. So my mindset is relationship, suitability, coachability, right? And then you have to be disciplined and you have to be consistent to get a result in anything. So why not here, right? And if they're right, I got people here for 4 years. They pay me every single month. I'm doing something right, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, so it's just a matter of time. But that became my funnel. It was weird how it happened, but it was the most fun funnel ever happened. So I call it edutainment. So what we're doing now is like I have a influencer has 800,000 followers, and I'm talking to a whole bunch of influencers. And I came about this strategy because of a company that I own, Elf Cosmetics. They have a lot of influencers, and they sell out an eyeliner in like 3 seconds because they put it across the influencer network. It just goes like this. It's like a launch pad. So I said, and I know referraling. So the best lead you can ever have is a referral. I mean, the best, right? Because the cold call or the guy who would, say, yes, I want you to do my mortgage, he will sell you out for 1/8%, right? But the person that said, hey, I got a good guy, he's going to take care of you, don't go nowhere else, go to him. He's going to get the business, be able to take care of it. So I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Influencer marketing is the thing I'm going to use to put games on. So now I'm doing fraternities, sororities. I'm starting that process right now. We just launched. So all these relationships are procured. Signed my first influencer yesterday. And we're just kind of making it happen. So it's a great, great business plan to get there. But from here, a streaming platform comes on top of it, like a Twitch style streaming platform, and then an educational streaming platform. So for instance, you probably heard of, or maybe not, let's go Pete Nigerian. I always use them as an example. They do options. So let's say that I get to a certain point, I'm having select, because I used to be in the music business, as you know, I have all these relationships, and I go, listen, I'm having a contest with, let's go Fat Joe and I don't know, LeBron, right? And you got hundreds of thousands of people on the app now. But we limit the game to 2,000 because we wanted to make it special. And we want to make sure that people play the game. But guess what? If I have a Pete Nigerian come on and say, listen, I put it out to 200,000 people. Pete Nigerian is teaching an option class for $40, the first 10,000 people. Whoa, what's that? Nothing. $10,000 people, that's $400,000. Pete Nigerian gets his thing, and the platform makes its money, and we keep moving. I mean, it's a great business plan to get to, and we're working towards that. But the bottom line is that the game itself is a ton of fun, is purpose-filled. And I pride myself on not doing things for money because it doesn't make sense to me anymore. When I was a kid, I chased it all day, but I found a way to rope it a little bit. So now I realize it's not as sexy as it. It's good to have for the family. It's a great tool, but it's not as sexy as I thought it was when I was 38 years old, buying like $600 shirts and didn't think about what I was doing with money, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a good that's a good message for people as well, just keeping your means. I mean, I wear $10 t-shirts, like I'm not, we're not, yeah, exactly. Most of my stuff is branded with my company's names on it or something. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. And I think that was really what helped, just living below your means for a long time, and then eventually it pays off. But man, Kevin, we appreciate all your insight today, and it's awesome. I'm gonna have to check out the investment dojo app. So for all the listeners out there, check out Kevin Davis. Are you on social media, Kevin? Instagram,
I,
anywhere?
I'm
Cool.
on my social YouTube Investment Dojo, my Facebook group Investment Dojo. I have my personal Instagram. I didn't even start doing I have an Investment Dojo 2.0, but the real KYZE is my personal Instagram, which is really where I post. And then probably have some more things that I'm probably not thinking about right now because I've written a book. I got a couple of things happening. But to find the app, it's in Apple, it's in Google Play. If you want to take part in a contest, join my Facebook page. I will definitely post links there. So right now I'm just focusing on large contests. But if I get enough people into the Facebook group, I'll do it. If it doesn't, 50, 60, 100 people. If, you depending on your audience size, if you want to do a contest, we can have some fun.
All
Basically it.
right. That sounds awesome, Kevin. Well, we appreciate your time today. And for all of our listeners out there, we have our next real estate meetup here in Baltimore on July 18th. I don't know if this will come out before then, but July 18th, CVP's in Towson, 6 to 9. We look forward to seeing everybody there.